Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be here today with the University of Texas at Dallas Global Mobility Club. This is so cool. Hey, give yourself a round of applause here. Thank you so much. Look at this. You're on a podcast. You made it. This is fantastic. This is great. No, this is so cool. This is such an honor for me, honestly, because in talking to Kerwin Guillermo, and then talking to Professor Zadorek, and then talking to Letitia, and talking to all the folks who are involved with the UTD program, I'm so hopeful, frankly, of the future of our industry, to see such amazing young talents like yourselves who are embracing global mobility and are curious about it and excited about it. And I can't wait to hear what you've learned. I'm really curious myself. There's a saying in our business that none of us went to school for global mobility. We just fell into the business, but here you are going to school for it. And that's so cool to me personally. So also, I want to welcome everybody who's out there right now, who's watching, tuning in. Get active in the comments, support these young people right now. I want to hear from you and give everybody some shout outs here. Let me know who you are, where in the world you are as well, because global mobility is a global industry. Hit that like button right now. Fantastic. We got our first comment. I get the thumbs up. I get the 100. What up? It's great. Letitia, hi everyone. Can you say hi to Letitia?
Hi, Letitia.
And May, tell me about Letitia's role.
I'm sorry.
Can you tell me about Letitia's role?
She used to be a TA for one of my professor's class. So I believe it's Professor Zadorek's class. Yeah. So and we had like a couple of projects together, and then we kind of interact with each other a lot back when it was in that class.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. And I know Letitia to me, she helped mentor me a couple of times. I had a couple of projects that I was working on, and Professor Zadorek directed me to Letitia, and I know that she was a great resource. So thank you so much for tuning in as well.
Yeah, she's awesome. Great supporter there. This is fantastic. We've got Alan Brown checking in. Hey, everyone. What's up, Alan? Good to see you, buddy. So cool. Janet Turner, excited to see you all and hear from you. Yes, Janet. We've got winners here today also, Janet. We talked about this last time, that there was competitions, which I found fascinating. I can't wait to hear about this competition. And we've got the winning team and the runner-up team here. So the best and truly the best and the brightest. Let's see here. This is fantastic. Stacy Huff, hi everyone. Looking forward to hearing about what you've learned. For sure, Stacy, leave a question in there for these kids. I want to hear your question. Rob Zeitz, hi from Air Inc., sunny and warm Boston. Rob, leave a question. Love to know what you're thinking. Mike Cadden there. Michael checking in from Connecticut at Living Abroad. What's up, Michael? Good to see you. Carlene from Houston. H-Town's in the house. Fantastic. Amanda from Urban Bound in sunny Phoenix. Tom Brune. Hello, UTD team, and thanks for all the dedication and progressive work you do. This is an amazing initiative. Do you all know Tom?
Yes, one of the judges.
I always said Tom was way too judgy. Was he too judgy or what? No, just kidding.
He was great. He was very helpful. I believe all of the winning teams, or even not winning team, they enjoy his feedback a lot.
Tom, I'd love to hear your comments, and I'd love to hear your questions as well. Let's see. Letitia says, "Go comments, go comments, go Glomo." Awesome. Who are the comments? There I ask.
We are the comments. We're all comments. Yeah, that's our mascot.
The comments. All right. So tell me about this. Tell me about this club. I hear that you're the president. Tell me about the Global Mobility Club.
Yeah, sure. So the Global Mobility Club was started last year. Professor Zadorek was the inspiration for it. And it's a student-led organization on campus that educates and encourages students to get involved with the global mobility industry. So I know you already mentioned about our competition, and last month we held the Joint Academe Mobility Week, which with 3 sessions featuring global mobility leaders and professionals from around the world. So that's pretty much like our biggest event that we had so far this year, and also the competition.
What was it like putting together this JAM week, this Joint Academe Mobility Week in competition?
May and I organized it together. So May, if you want to talk about it as well. But it was exciting. Honestly, I enjoyed it. It was a little bit hard at first because I never did something like that before, but we had a lot of help from mentors like Kerwin and Professor Zador.
May, what was that experience like for you?
Yes, it was awesome. Like I actually learned a lot throughout the process, and I enjoyed it so much. I actually learned about global mobility through the Game Week and the competition. So it was really interesting, I would say, because I didn't attend all of the game days, but watched the recordings, and then every time I was just so interested, like in the industry even more.
What was
So
it that really caught your? What was it that caught your attention and your fascination, May?
So we have like different topics and obviously different speakers every day, but the one that I enjoyed the most was the day that that me and Aya was a coordinator, the Wednesday section, that we talked about how Altair, which is a relocation company, used Qualtrics as a tool to help their client, which is AT&T, to move their employees around the world. And it was really helpful and interesting to see in action how they use the tools available to move their employees around the world. So I think that was really informative.
Wow, interesting. I have to ask, what was the competition about? Because we have some winning teams here. We're going to get into the winning proposals and winning presentations, but what was the purpose of the competition?
So the competition was we asked the teams to make up 3 innovative ideas to attraction, retention, and training of employees for the global mobility industry. And so they each came up with 3 innovative ideas, and then they presented it to professionals from the industry, like Tom. He was one of the judges. And basically, the goal was to make it able to be implemented.
I see. Okay, I like it. So it has to be practical as well.
Yeah,
okay, very
exactly.
Cool. So we've got 2 of the winning teams here. Okay. And I'm going to start with Taylor and Sarah, right? You guys were on a team together, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So tell me about your ideas that you presented. Can you give us some meat here to what you presented?
Yeah, so I'll just do a kind of a general run through of the 3 that we came up with. So there was 5 of us. We're actually all in the MBA program at UTD. So that's kind of where we formed this team. And our 3 ideas, we did one for each. So attraction, retention, and development. So our attraction idea was really the issue we were trying to solve is preventing failure rates in expatriatism. And how do we address the common reasons for failure? So we said
so when you're saying failure rates, you mean like failed assignments, like someone goes over to China on assignment, and for some reason that assignment doesn't work out.
Yeah,
you're trying to reduce the assignment failure rate. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of the research we found, there was failure rates as high as 50% in some areas. Wow. So obviously companies are putting a lot of money into these projects, sometimes up to 3 times an employee's salary. And if that ends up failing, they're obviously losing out on that money and that profit.
Can I ask you, what did you find was the reason for such a high failure rate?
Yeah, so that's what we really wanted to focus on, is we wanted our ideas to address the most common reasons. And so we found a lack of support system. So people are going over to these countries and they're not having both professional connections as well as personal ones. They're in a new place. They don't understand the culture. And so our 3 ideas really all focus on addressing that. So our vetting process was to attract them. And so we said, you want to have someone that has the right traits that are going to be able to succeed overseas, wherever they end up. Our retraction one was to have a buddy program. So sending expatriates in sets of 2. So by sending them together, they have each other. And then once they get there, we also are pairing them with someone in that community. So our example was in Germany, we would pair them with someone that's also in Germany so that they have a personal connection to get, transportation ideas, some recommendations for restaurants, anything like that. And then our development was kind of this re-entry program of a lot of times expatriates come back after a year or so and have different interests. So they want to do different things. Their interests have changed and they want to incorporate that. They don't want to go back into the position they were in prior to leaving.
Wow, really interesting. I mean, it sounds super practical. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you here with a question. And actually, you know what, Sarah, I want to get your thoughts on this. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So so Taylor gave the example of, if people go over, to say Germany and kind of doing a buddy system where you pair them with people going over, and then you connect them with other expats who might be in the community over there. Well, that makes a lot of sense for, say, a large program like a Toyota or an HPE or one of these large programs. How do you execute that with a smaller company that doesn't have the critical mass of expats to do that with?
Yeah, that was something that came up from the judges, and the basis of our presentation is we were assuming a large company, but I think when you get down to and this is what we did when we were talking about our ideas as a group, was when we get down to the heart of the matter, it's, feeling a lack of support. I actually have a brother who went over to Dublin for a year, and we interviewed him to figure out on a work assignment. And he said, especially for my wife, it was really hard because she didn't have even that work community. And so I think if we get to the root of the matter, which is connection, you can come up with other ideas. So it's nice that big companies have the program already set up. They can send over multiple people. They have the funds to do that. But I would think it would come to an HR person or someone who's a contract global mobility company, for instance, having a network and saying, okay, what kind of interests does this person have? How can we connect them? I know that there are expat groups, specifically, for instance, maybe Americans living in different countries, that can be joined. And so I would see a small company maybe finding those resources, less so within the company network.
Yeah. I think you bring up a great point too. I mean, if you're using a relocation management company, your individual company may not have a critical mass of expats in Germany, let's say, but that relocation management company might manage hundreds of expats in that country, and so they could connect them. Those are fantastic ideas. I want to kind of dig into those a little bit. We got some great comments and questions here. I always want to prioritize the comments and the questions here from the audience here. Hit that like button right now. I want to hear what you are thinking. Danny's checking in from Global Talent. What's up, Danny? Good to see you. We might have to recruit some of these kids and place them, Danny, in some new gigs here. Let's see. Janet says, can you be specific how some of the corporate global mobility professionals helped in mentoring you? What was most helpful? I want to go around the horn with this and ask this question here. What was one thing maybe that you can remember that one of the corporate global mobility professionals helped in mentoring? And you know what, we haven't heard that much from Jamie and Amelia. So Amelia, you want to kick us off there and we'll go kind of the other way?
So I want to say that our Professor Zadorek, he has really impacted Jamie and I. He's been a really good inspiration for me personally. He has taught us a lot of things about people, especially in how people are really important in corporate and just in personal life as well. I just want to say, if he is watching, I just want to say thank you, Professor, for teaching us so many things. Jamie and I also have a class with Professor Zadorek, and we are definitely getting a lot of experience and gaining a lot of wisdom from the guest speakers that he brings in, from like Altair, from Amazon. All those guest speakers that he brings in really brings another corporate perspective in global mobility. And so we took that inspiration, their perspective, into our presentation as well. So I just want to say thank you, Professor.
That's awesome. And it's funny because we say it's just business, but really it is about the people, and it is always personal to some degree. So Amelia, you have any advice for me? How do I become a speaker in one of these classes? Professor Zadorik's never asked me to speak. I don't know. Is there any advice you might give me?
I could actually, we have a class with him today. I will ask him right after class, just for you.
No. Please raise your hand in the middle of class and just ask him, put him on the spot. That'd be super. Thank you so much.
I'll even give your show a shout out.
Thank you. That'd be great. We need all the help we can get. Jamie, what's one piece of advice you got from the mentoring, or one insight you got?
I mean, so I think especially as like young individuals in this whole world of uncertainty as we are now, the really cool piece of advice that I got from, global mobility professionals is that there's not one answer and there's not one right or wrong way of going about, exploring the world of global mobility, just because it is so multifaceted. From the guest speakers that Amelia was talking about, we learned about so many different, different aspects of global mobility that I never even thought of before. So being comfortable in that space and exploring the interests that I have and applying that to global mobility has been one of the biggest, supporting factors for me.
Very cool. Very cool. May, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to kind of go around the horn because I really love this topic here. What was something you learned from the mentoring from global mobility professionals?
Yes, I actually learned a lot, and me and Jamie and Amelia we are in the same class in National HR Management with Professor Zadorek. So just want to say, like, if you guys forget to ask him about get made as a speaker, I'll ask him like tomorrow, like right now.
Yeah, so, that'd be really nice. Thank you, May.
Yeah, we learned a lot from the speakers from that class, of course, and then I want to say like a big thank you to Kerwin. Besides Professor Zadorek, Kerwin is another inspiration for me to explore about this path, because we worked closely with him for the Jam Week and the competition. And I also have another personal project with him. So I would say he's more of like a mentor to me at this point. And then he provides so many valuable insights into the industry. And then we actually have a really interesting conversation with him earlier, that he wanted me to draft a job description and send it to him. So basically, I was just writing down what I want to do, and he will look into that and consider within his capacity and see what he can help me with that. So it's not like a really traditional way to define career, basically. So I would say it's really inspiring talking with him, because he's really creative. Like the way he does things is really creative and really out of the box thinker. So I learned that from him, and I think that's really valuable as a student to learn from the mentors such as Kelvin and Professor George.
Yeah, for sure. And shout out to Kerwin Guillermo. I mean, Kerwin's a mentor of mine. I actually wrote a post about him today. He's extremely creative, super innovative, and so altruistic. And what a great heart he's got. And it's awesome. It's awesome that you were able to have that time. Yes. Aya, I'm going to go to you next. What's something you learned from the mentoring you received?
Yeah, so I wanted to go off what Amelia and May said earlier, that shout out to Professor Zadorek. He's the one that introduced me to global mobility and what it even was in the very beginning. And he's great. He helps a lot. And also Kerwin, we would not have been able to do the events without him. And it just blows my mind how he literally knows everybody. But I also wanted to say thank you to Laura from Altair, because she was my mentor when I participated in the competition last year. And then she also helped us to organize it this year. So she's really great, and she's always down to help for whatever we need. And I learned a lot from her as well, because she gave us a lot of advice, for my team when we were in the competition. And then even this year, she's helping me, maybe potentially working with Altair, but I don't know yet. So yeah.
Put her on the spot. Make her hire you right now. That's fine. Laura, can somebody at Laura Gattens right now? Can we at all these people right now who were shouting out, at Laura Gattens, at Hubert, at Kerwin, all these amazing people that were shouting out? They all deserve some recognition here. Taylor, what was something you learned from your mentoring?
Yeah, so for me, this this competition was actually kind of my first exposure to global mobility. And we had a session like halfway between when things were due. And we got to talk with a lot of professionals from the global mobility industry and ask them questions kind of about the problems. And that's where we got the idea to be more human focused with our ideas rather than, the data is always going to be there and there's always going to be movement in the technology industry, but like humans and the emotion of moving and uprooting your life to somewhere else temporarily is really what needed to be addressed. And so I think that was the biggest piece of advice for us, is that while the technology continues to adapt and get better, we also have to remember that there's the human side and the emotions of it.
I love it. Yeah, there's been a lot of focus on technology, but I think you can't lose the human-centric approach. Sarah, last but not least, I wanted to ask you, what did you take away from some of the mentoring opportunities you had?
This is also my first. I've wanted to work internationally. I think it's fascinating. I would like to have the opportunity someday, but I hadn't looked at it as an industry. And I wasn't able to attend this session that Taylor is talking about, but the mentors did give us a lot of really great reading. And one of the things that I took away, besides, like Taylor said, that it needs to be human-centered and, considering feelings and things, is there are some things that you can really make a difference with, for instance, creating a good experience, versus some things that may take a little longer, like the immigration issues and all the things that are happening because companies aren't able, for instance, to get as many visas as they want for workers coming into the United States. So I appreciated getting that information and learning more about that. So thank you.
Yeah, this is great. I love hearing this kind of stuff as well. By the way, if anybody doesn't know, we are talking right now to the University of Texas at Dallas Global Mobility Club, the GMC at UTD. Right now, the Comets, go Comets! Let's see here. We got people checking in here. Rob Zeitz from Air Inc. Well, actually, Rob's got one question. We like to alternate fun with business here. All right, over under 1.5 hours. How much does Kerwin sleep per day, do you think? 1.5 hours, more or less. It's okay. We can have fun. You can laugh. Take yourself off mute if you're gonna laugh. You want to answer? Anybody have an answer for this here?
I don't know,
but
I don't know, Kerwin. I can't count.
But I feel like it's under.
I like how students are always trying to get the right answer. Like, well,
he's super hardworking. Every time we had a call, like he's working on another project. So yeah. I feel like he definitely doesn't get enough sleep for sure. But I've heard from Professor Zadorek that sometimes he's trying to push the calls because you're working with like people from all around the world and like from the other side of the globe. So I heard from Professor Zadorek that he sometimes he tried to put the call and up to like 4 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, wow, like that's something to learn from.
Dedication.
Like, that's hardworking.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a lot of dedication there. I've been on the phone with Kerwin when it was super late my time and his time. Rob says 2 questions. What drew you to be interested in global mobility, and what have you learned about global mobility so far that is keeping you most interested? Wow. Who wants to take this question?
Well, I'll contribute. So my major is global business and international political econ. And to be honest, when I first started that, like I wasn't sure what I was going to do after graduation. I was just going to go with the flow. But after I got exposed to global mobility, I think it's like a great opportunity for global business majors who aren't sure like where they want to take their degree. And it's really cool because like you also get opportunities to travel, and that's something that I wanted to do. So yeah.
Very cool.
I mean, bouncing off of that, similarly with me, so also a global business student, I'm also double majoring in supply chain. And so both of those.
We need you, Jamie, because our supply chain is screwed right now. Okay.
I know.
We can't move any shipments. We don't got any housing. There's nothing. Okay.
I know way too much about that. I know way too much about what's going on right now at the ports. Man, don't get me started. So that kind of was what sparked my idea of the mobility aspect of it. Definitely, I did come into global business wanting to someday be an expat. I think that would be a really cool, position to be in. And through that, I learned more about the global mobility consulting, which is kind of what Altair Global does. And those are really, really cool, where worlds collide, if you will, where I can have all of it in one, where I can have the global mobility, I can have the consulting, I can have, all of those fun aspects together. So that was kind of what got me interested, and what's keeping me going is that idea of, man, we don't know where the world's going, but that's exciting to me, and being able to work in that space would be exciting.
I'm gonna go around the horn on this one as well, because Val's kind of asking the same thing, and it kind of takes off on what you were saying, Jamie. What element of the mobility industry is most enticing to you? So from what you know now, and you were to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go into global mobility, I'm going to make a career out of this, what aspect could you see yourself doing when you graduate?
That's a good question. Definitely consulting is something I am looking into. I know Altair Global does a lot of moving to the actual, and that includes the supply chain aspect, but I never saw supply chain in that way, but the supply chain of moving people from, you have to take their car from here to move it there, and how do you do that? Or pets, that's another just random thing that I never even thought of for some reason, but that's another aspect that supply chain, global mobility professionals work through. So learning about all of those elements is wow, it's global and it's supply chain. That's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to ask everybody this question, but I just want to comment on that because I have a moving background. And, you're talking about container shipping. You're also talking about the lumber shortage that we had, because a lot of the containers that go inside the containers are made out of wood called lift fans. From a corporate housing and a furnished apartments, standpoint, which is where expats go to live when they go to other countries. Well, those all have to be furnished with furniture. So you need available apartments, which right now it's really hard to find apartments. And the furniture is stuck in the shipping containers at the Port of Long Beach or in other ports around the world, and they can't get furniture. And by the time it delivers out, it's moldy sometimes, it's been damaged out at sea, things like this. So there's all sorts of supply chain issues, you're right, that people wouldn't think about within relocation, because you think of it as a service and not a product. But there's a lot of supply chain and transportation issues.
Exactly.
I want to keep going here. What aspect of mobility is most enticing to you? I think we've heard from Aya and we've heard from Jamie.
So Jamie's partner, Amelia, I guess, will take the show. Oh gosh, why am I talking like this? But
nice.
To bounce on what Jamie said, one thing good about Jamie and one thing that I found really enjoyable working with her in the competition was that we're pretty similar in what we kind of want as a career. So I also want to go into consulting, international consulting. And I found that throughout the program that Jamie is really good at, creating ideas, thinking outside the box, communicating in a way that people can understand. And that's something that I lack in, something that I want to improve on. But like she said, I think global mobility is really becoming more about the people, their perspective. So in a way, personally, I want to, even though I'm not very familiar with global mobility, I'm starting to get into it, and I first started with the competition. I think I really want to help people kind of realize what global mobility is and help them with, their career, help them get from one place to another internationally, because I believe most of us here are global business students, so we do have an interest in, traveling, what life looks like in another person's perspective. And so I've become quite interested in that as well. And I'm thankful to have, people like Jamie, people like May and Aya, who are also, running the Global Mobility Club and, kind of resurfacing global mobility, getting out to everyone. And so I think it's great that global mobility is starting to become more than what it is now.
Amelia, I'm so happy you mentioned that, because we go to university or we go into our certifications or whatever, and we look to learn hard skills, and we look to learn, we look to learn these hard skills. And what I've talked to hundreds of global mobility professionals at the top of the industry. And the number one skill or the number one attribute that continues to resurface with all of them is that they love people and they love helping people. And it really is about that in our business, because no matter how smart you are with shipping, no matter how smart you are with policy or, housing or whatever, if you don't really care about the person and the family that you're relocating around the world during one of their most stressful times of their life, as they go on to pursue a new opportunity and kind of improve their situation, you're ultimately going to get burnt out on the job, because it's stressful. It's really stressful, and you have to love it.
I completely agree with you. And so in our competition, our title of our presentation was Campaign You. And so our presentation was really about the people. We focused on, how global mobility has changed, how it was, before COVID outbreaks, and how it is now. And we really focused on how people are becoming so important, what people look for going into a company, the type of company culture that they're looking for, what kind of culture they're looking for personally as well. So we really focused that in our presentation with Campaign U. It was our development phase. We named it. What did we name it? It was
for the attract phase.
Yeah, for attract phase, we named it Unique. And then for the next
all right, well, let's get into your solutions. Let's get in, because I have the same question I wanted to ask Taylor, and I'm going to ask everybody before I get in, because I want to hear about your solutions too that you developed, okay, that your team developed. I want to give you that time. But I want to also ask this question of the rest of the group here, and it was Valerie's question: what element of the mobility industry is the most enticing to you? If you were to go into mobility tomorrow, from what you've learned, and I understand we don't know everything. Trust me, I don't even know everything. Nobody knows everything. But what aspect would you go into? What's most enticing to you? Who hasn't answered yet?
I can start.
Can try.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, May.
Oh, thank you. So what I've learned so far is that because you mentioned this earlier, but the technology that we're having right now is so advanced, and we've people always look into we're gonna get, especially after COVID, people just think we're gonna get rid of the international assignment when we can just do a Zoom call, a team call. So, but that's not gonna happen. We still need people around the world, and there's a purpose for sending people overseas. And I think that's really interesting that people have that misunderstanding about not sending people overseas anymore. So I think that's really keep me interested in the industry. And also, I feel because we talk about how people doing remote work right now, so they are working from home, but that's actually really risky for companies to do. So if you are not having really strong management tools to manage your employees, it's really hard to keep track of the remote workers. So I feel that's really interesting to me from what I learned so far.
So May, I have to challenge something you said. So you are, I think you're all Generation Z. Is that safe to say? Okay, cool. So I think people would think that, okay, Generation Z is probably the most technologically fluent generation ever, right? Probably the most comfortable with virtual environments. And yet you're saying that the virtual environments and the technology tools that we have are not going to replace the need to be in person and physically present. Why do you believe that? And I'd love to hear if other people believe that as well, because it's an existential question that we're grappling with right now, and I'd love to hear your thoughts
So
on
to me, I love people and I love helping people, that's for sure. So I love interacting with people, especially at my work right now and going to school. I still prefer in-person classes. So I can imagine myself. I know a lot of people enjoy being a permanent remote worker, but that's not the case for me personally. So I love going to the office, talking to people, working in team projects, and just basically interacting with people every day. That's what energizes me. So despite a lot of people enjoy being remote workers, I don't think I can be like partially remote, but I don't want to be like permanently remote. Um, and that's something just me, like part of my personality that even though I'm Gen Z, I love technology. Everybody loves it, but I don't think that can replace everything and solve every problem.
Does anyone agree with May?
So
I do.
I somewhat agree. I think that the trends are definitely, and this is what we did focus on a little bit on in our research. The trends are definitely showing that the virtual environment can potentially help support a global mobility type environment, but it's not going to fully replace it. So before COVID and before, we heard a lot of industry professionals say that you would travel literally for anything. So you would travel for those 1 hour meetings or those 3 hour meetings, you'd hop on a plane and you'd go to your next location. I think that day and age is over, 100%. But I do think that there is a strong, reason for why people do need to still go abroad. And that's things that you cannot necessarily get over a virtual type setting, something like communication. So I think that's a huge part of global mobility, and the reasons why we send expats abroad, right, is because of that communication, whether that's to teach a subsidiary or to learn about what's going on in a different location, whatever it is, that's why we send expats abroad. And so that's something that you can't get through a virtual environment. That still needs to stay. So I think for those longer assignments, for those more communication, I guess, heavy assignments, definitely in person is still required.
Thanks, Jamie. Taylor, you had a comment?
Yeah, I kind of agree what Jamie was saying about we need both. Like, I think technology has given us opportunities that we didn't have in the past with communicating cross-nationally, cross-globally, but also it doesn't replace the actual connection that you have with a person when you're in person. As I know May mentioned virtual classes. We're totally in person, and on the few times that we've had to do something virtually, it's hard to really zone in and focus and connect with the people in the same way. It's not the same as having like a roundtable conversation.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we are able to communicate a lot of ideas here, and there's things that we can do from a collaboration standpoint in the virtual environment, like pop in comments from everyone like this, like Richard from London, please, I can make this very important broadcast. Great idea. Richard, love any questions you have for the folks here at the UTD Global Mobility Club. Throw them in the comments. But you're right. There's so much more information from just a body language. I mean, there was a stat. I don't know if this is still a stat or still a thing, but 70% of communication is nonverbal, right? Mm-hmm. Well, how much do you miss when you can only see like this much of me, right? How much do you miss when I'm not physically there and you're not vibing off energies and things like that, right? So I think you're on to something there. And I think it's really interesting because I think as soon as we went virtual and Zoom, and now we're doing like 8 Zoom meetings a day, we're like, we never need to get on a plane again. And then we thought that for a year and a half, and then we got on a plane and we went to Worldwide ERC, and we went to International Association of Movers in Orlando and Chicago, and we're going to all these things. And you're like, holy crap, it feels amazing to be back with people. We're giving hugs, we're giving handshakes, we're having drinks, having dinner. I mean, just so many things are happening, and it was incredibly eye-opening. Right now, let's see here. We got people chiming in here. Nicola from Germany. The Germans are here. Definitely another level discussion. It feels great to be a part of it. I'd ask the panel, what do they need from the global mobility professional community to help with their research? What piece of information is missing? Wow. If you could get any information from the global mobility community that you don't have now, what would it be? Wow, great question, Nicola.
I bet Jamie has a great answer, but she seems like she's very analytical. But I will say when I was researching, there was a surprising lack of hard data. I don't know if anybody else felt that, but
it's a thing. It's true.
Okay, I didn't know if that was. So I think as we continue to track that, that would be really helpful. I mean, it can never replace being with someone and talking to them and figuring it out, but it'd be helpful.
You know, I want to comment on that though, Sarah. Before we get, I want to hear everybody else's thoughts on this too, because it's such a cool question, and we have the platform to actually execute on it. But you know, Sarah, you're so right. There's a lack of data, but it's also very siloed, right? So a company may I'm just going to pick on Toyota again, right? Toyota may have all this employee data, right, within its like HRIS system, right? But do they share that with their RMC? Oftentimes not, right? Or an RMC might have all this aggregated data from many employers, right? But it's missing, like it might tell you like what they did on assignment, but it's missing, you know, how did that employee perform after they were moved? You know, what was their year-end review like for the next 3 years? Did we see an increase in performance? Well, the company's not reporting that back to the RMC. That's proprietary personnel data, you know? So the data exists, but it exists in these silos where it makes it unusable because it's either not big enough data, it's only a part of the story. So there really is an enormous opportunity, Sarah, and you're 100% right, an enormous opportunity to test our hypotheses on outcomes with data that we just haven't been able to stitch together yet. It's a great observation.
And would you say, and thank you for telling me why that happened. I figured there was a reason, but
it's not because we're stupid. I promise. It's not because we're dumb. But I mean, maybe a little bit, but not 100%. I'm not 100%.
Well, and what I would ask you is it maybe also because companies are just kind of coming around to what matters to measure and how to piece that together? Because we're talking about, you know, sometimes it seems like moving blocks around, right? But now we're talking about the human element and how attracting the right kind of people and helping give them the right experience and then reintroducing them into a company where they can now use these new skills and this new point of view. And so maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah, Sarah, good question. It's not because we don't want to know, and it's not because we don't know what we don't want to know. I think what it is it's a matter of access and it's a matter of influence. So the people who have access don't maybe have. Sorry, let me rephrase this. We don't have access to all the data points because they live in different silos, and we don't necessarily have the influence as global mobility. You might hear these conversations around how do we get a seat at the table per se, right? So global mobility is kind of this niche within, you know, total rewards or comp and ben, or maybe it's its own little island and nobody understands what it does, or maybe it sits within legal and some weird organizations or finance even because from a tax standpoint. And so it's never really, not never, I should say, never say never, but it's not typically prioritized at the level where you could marshal the resources necessary to really dig into it or create a data warehouse for all this stuff. I mean, so I think that there's a confluence of issues there. So I think one of the cool opportunities we have and opportunities for your generation and things that we're doing here on the show even is raising the profile of global mobility and the importance so that companies will continue to invest and increase investment in it. So by observing the ROI, because the ROI can't be proven in like hard numbers because we're missing so much of the data around outcomes, but it can be proven with qualitative data. So when we talk about data, we oftentimes talk about numbers and Excel, you know, spreadsheets, right? And if you're looking for that, you're going to be at a loss. But I think there's an opportunity with curious people who want to put in the work to actually do these qualitative assessments, like i.e. interview people who have been on assignment, interview people who have sent people on assignment, and understand from them what the value of that assignment was. Because people who have been on assignment understand the value. People who haven't sometimes don't grasp it. And it's like, what's the disconnect there, you know? And I think that comes out in the qualitative. Is my opinion.
Well, and I will say I wasn't going after global mobility companies. I was thinking more of, when you talk about seat at the table, like getting big companies to see. So maybe they say, you know what, we're going to think about our data in a different way, and we're going to look at it with these kinds of questions and figure that out. So definitely not going after the global mobility companies.
These are real problems. Like, and we know that they're issues too. And it's cool that you've identified this like kind of really early on, right, in the journey. So So that's cool, and no offense taken. Trust me, we know where our warts are in this business. We got off on a like down a rabbit hole there. Did anybody else want to weigh in on that topic?
I was kind of going to go off what Sarah was saying of having a more streamlined way of like the research and the data that's out there, because it is out there. It's just not in an accessible place for students like us. And I think I'd like to bring up, like Sarah and I are actually now doing a racial justice competition, and it's a lot more easy to find data for that than it was for the global mobility. And I think the seat at the table is we're seeing that with racial justice, like they are having initiatives and programs that within a company, and it's one of their main focuses. And so that's why we're able to access that more easily.
Interesting. Racial justice, would the data be coming from governments?
It's somewhat of it, but there's also a lot of statistics within businesses where they're actually setting goals for reaching different milestones within their company regarding equality, equity, and that sort of thing.
Diversity, equity, inclusion numbers. Yeah, sure. No, it makes sense. And, we've talked about the issues in collecting data there. And in fact, a lot of companies still fail to collect data around that because they think maybe they're not allowed to, or it opens up other issues. We've got really cool comments. I'm just going to read some of these comments and hopefully you enjoy. Nicholas says, return on investment is fairly frequent topic recently in global mobility. The industry agrees on the fact that there are things you can measure and things you can't. I believe that the big four have done their share of research on this. Interesting. Tom says, Ben, when I think of myself in my early 20s, I read this as when I think of myself in the early 20s. Tom was not around in the early 20s. Tom says, when I think of myself in my early 20s, although I wasn't the dullest crayon in the box, I certainly did not have the poise and presentation skills that these UTD students have. Talk about high potential emotional intelligence. Do they give credit to parents, friends, teachers, college, or take it all for themselves? I'm just kidding. Or professional peers, or all of the above. I'm making jokes. Who do you credit? This is such a loaded question, Tom. All right, this is your opportunity to give a shout out. But you got to pick one person or pick one set of people. Who do you credit with all of your poise and emotional intelligence? Go.
I feel like that's a good question, but it's also really personal because I would say like I credit my mom. I don't know. She like teaches me how to be like emotionally intelligent, and also like I grew up in a really small town in Bangor, Maine. You probably don't even know where
Bangor. All right.
Yeah. So that's where I grew up, and like being different from everybody who was around me, like in elementary school and middle school, like you just kind of have to stand out in a good way. So that's what I would credit.
You know what? Giving credit is one of the best skills anyone can ever teach you. So let's practice it now. Taylor, who do you give credit to?
I go off of that of my parents. I think also just family in general. I'm the
Taylor,
oldest.
I'm going to make you pick one. They might be watching. I'm just
They're in the other room. The door's closed.
Oh, they're in the other room. Nice.
Yeah,
that's great.
But no, I also have two younger sisters, and so I think being the oldest also just allowed me to develop that emotional intelligence a little bit younger, and that maturity.
Very cool. Very cool. I was like, I give credit to my parents and I leave. Got it. No, it's cool. Jamie, who do you give credit to?
So it might be cliche, but my mother, definitely, she's very German. My last name is Schmidt, as you can see. So she's very, very German. And that task-oriented like culture and mentality definitely was instilled in me. But I think honestly, in terms of like UTD's influence on me, I think as a whole, UTD is a very, very progressive college. It has programs like this that not a lot of universities have. It empowers students in a way that a lot of universities don't. And I think that has really also helped me come into my shell and my coming of age, if you will, of being confident in what I'm saying, doing the research, doing it well, and then being able to show that to the world. So I think UTD has a lot to do with it.
Awesome.
I love UTD, by the way. But
nice. It's great.
Yeah, I want.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to Jamie too, because I used to have an internship with her, and then she was basically my boss, and she literally I learned so much presentation was from her. Like, so thank you, Jeremy. I think I told you this before, but I just want to say it again. And UTD definitely has a lot of influence on me. And the global mobility professionals, um, I learned from their speakers events and their presentation in my international HR class and also from the James event week. So I think all of them had like definitely influence on my performance at school, and of course my family.
Last but not least, no, but that's cool that you can recognize your peer group there too, May. Let's see here, Amelia.
So I think personal-wise, like everyone has said, like my mom has definitely shaped me as, like as a woman. She's taught me, things that other people can't, like you can't learn things that you learn from your mom in like school, like from your friends. A mom's love is so different than, any other love that you will receive. So my mom has definitely supported me. She's never pressured me, like, I want you to do this or that. She's always said that you need to find what you want to do and you need to take that into heart. And when you work for someone or something that you're passionate about or that you respect or that you really like doing, it really makes a difference in the work that you put out, and especially if you like it. And then I am really glad that I came to UTD actually, even though they're still a growing school. I think UTD has more of that personal interactions with like professors, with programs like GMC. There are a lot more opportunities for students to kind of find a personalized program or even organization that they are interested in. And so I'm really grateful for my family and for, coming to UTD and for meeting a great friend like Jamie.
Nice. Very cool. Sarah, who do you credit?
Also my mom mainly. And a lot of that is because she worked really hard, very purposefully to teach us empathy. So like if we had a problem with someone at school, her first question was, what do you think they might have been feeling or thinking, or what might have caused that? So I think that was really helpful, even though my child brain hated it at the time. I really value that now.
That's great. That's so cool. That's really cool. Ray's checking in here. This is cool. Sandra, there's power in personal connection and so much more possible in person. Yes, very cool. Michael Cadden's got a great question here, actually. Janet's over here nominating Jamie for head of U.S. transportation. Janet, I think that's a little premature, but it's definitely something to shoot for. Very cool. This is fun. All right, let's see here. Michael Cadden has a comment. He says, international assignees are not a diverse group. Mostly male, mostly white. This obviously needs to change. Your thoughts? Speaking of diversity, equity, and inclusion, how do we get more DE&I on assignment? I mean, there's the global mobility professional side, which I think we do an okay job with the people, especially on the corporate side. Maybe not on the service provider side. Service provider is still pretty, not as diverse as we'd like to see it. But as far as the actual assignees themselves, who's getting selected, who's getting put on assignment, understanding that assignments are one of the leading indicators, in my opinion, on professional development and ascension, especially in large corporations. How do we work on diversity, equity, and inclusion within international assignments?
I'll go.
I'm going to throw that out there, that really heavy question.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of tie in this competition with the racial justice one, is that from this competition, we found that most assignees are getting picked based off of manager recommendations, internal, there is like a posting, but it's more just for, to check the box, but they kind of already have someone in mind. And from the racial justice research that we've done, we found that these people aren't given the same opportunities to advance and have those kind of progressive movement. And so they might not be in a position to get that opportunity to be assigned.
Yeah, I think that's a real observation. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with Taylor, with what Taylor said, and also it might be helpful if companies like make it clear to different groups of people, like what's actually entailed in this international assignment, because maybe they might be intimidated, like if they have family or whatever, they need to be like explained to that all of that will be compatible with your trip. And never underestimate women. We're all women on this panel today.
Nice.
Yeah, I read an article once where a woman was saying that she was almost passed over for an assignment because the people making the decision, I think, were mostly male, and she had a family, and so they were worried about it, so they weren't even going to ask. And I just wonder how much that plays into it when you think someone wouldn't want to, instead of offering them the ability.
I think that's a real issue. I think people look at situations, they say who would be best suited, and what does best suited mean, right? You know, who's single, who's unattached, who's, the person with the job that's maybe the career that's the primary career in the unit, right? I mean, these are all kinds of external judgments that people make. The other big one that I think happens a lot too is that, and I think somebody mentioned this before, is that a lot of these assignments aren't offered formally; they're offered kind of informally, like, hey, would you ever think about going to Mexico to run the plant or something, right? And how are those conversations? Where do those conversations happen? They happen over a beer. They happen over lunch, right? They happen in these kind of informal little environments. And a lot of times, people still are going to lunch or going for a beer or going for whatever with people that look like them. And the people that are making these decisions are often white males, right? And so I think there's an informal network thing that goes on too. I mean, boys clubs, right? That's a saying that we need to think about as well. So very, very interesting. And I think the racial justice studies that you're talking about also inform a lot around that too, right? Around, just the same way that we look at how do we hire for diversity and how do we mentor, how do we create inclusion, how do we mentor for equity within companies. A lot of those lessons can also be applied to how do we recruit assignees as well. Let's see here. Jana's saying, Jana, my colleague, moms, great women, empowering, amazing girls. Surely y'all will and are already inspiring others. #girl power. All right. You have to convince Jana. Jana lives in Brazil and Jana wants to come to the US and get her doctorate. And I'm trying to convince her to go to UTD. Why should she go to UTD?
So definitely UTD is, I mean, depending on what you're looking to go into, UTD is a tier 1 research institution. And the various resources that are in place for students, and especially diversity and inclusion, are one of the biggest pushes here at the university. So if that's something that you're looking into, where you as an individual will feel cared about, will be pushed and challenged to do your best constantly, and will always meet amazing people along the way who have the same ambitions as you, then UTD is the place for you. If you don't care about any of that, then don't come here.
Wow.
I like it. She's challenging. Look at Jamie just challenging people. She doesn't even know on the internet. I love it. This is fantastic. No, I know Jana loves challenges, so I'm sure she'll respond to that one. No, this is great. But you know what? I didn't want to forget, Jamie and Amelia, I wanted you to tell me about your project, please.
So for our project, like I said, we made it Campaign U. That was the title. And so, like it says, we made it all about, people involved in global mobility. So we first started off with, research about global mobility before and after COVID. And then we went into our attraction, retention, and development. And so our attraction was called Unique. And then our retention was called
You Matter. You Matter.
Oh, You Matter. And then our development was called
You Deserve It.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I kind of have like public. I'm bad at public. But yes, but You Deserve It. And so what we did was that for our attraction, we posed 3 critical questions. And so the competition, what do you call it? Not the title, but the question was, how has the pandemic affected you? what steps did you take during the times of crisis and the pandemic, and how are you going to apply your reinvention, your story of how you reinvented yourself in the pandemic, and how are you going to apply that to the future? And so we really focused on the stories of people during the pandemic, specifically millennials and Gen Zs. They are going to be, well, I guess we are going to be the driving force of the workforce in the future. And it's important for people to understand that how global mobility was before and how it is now. And so we did mention that, we're kind of going into a hybrid work environment now. And it's important that we realize this, and that, not everyone is going to travel, across the world for like a 1-hour meeting anymore. I mean, we have like Zoom or Teams to do that. But it is also important to understand the importance of in-person meetings. So we mentioned earlier that you're not going to have the same connection as, having a virtual call rather than meeting someone in person. There's not that open communication. You can't see their body language. You won't have direct eye contact with them. There's really none of that interaction in a virtual setting. And so we talked about that it's important for us to realize that we are going to a hybrid work environment, and we need to, in a way, find ways to curate towards, this hybrid working environment. Do you want to take it with like what specific ideas we introduced?
Yeah, definitely. So in our attraction phase, we wanted to emphasize the fact that companies don't involve like college universities as much in terms of like celebration. So when you hit your 50 year, do you go to the internal employee? Yes. But what about if you included the colleges as well? So then university students can get that experience as well and say, wow, like this company is great. I want to become, part of this company because they're doing such amazing things, and have those celebrations with the community on top of your internal community. So I think that that's a cool way to interact and attract new talent, people who are looking for similar things. In terms of our retention phase, that one is called You Matter. So we want to focus on the important things that new millennials and Gen Z generations are focusing on. And a lot of that is company culture, involvement, and also just business impact. I think that's a huge, huge part of what can a company do for you and the community and what you care about. So having companies understand who they're hiring and what they care about, and making an active effort to impact those, whether that's donate to charity, get involved more with volunteerism or things like that in the community, will definitely help push those agendas there.
And then we wrapped up our presentation with the development phase, so You Deserve. And we had 3 suggestions that companies can do to develop their employees. And so the first one was to offer coaching and mentoring opportunities with, higher ups in the company. Second was to cross-train. So that would be allowing companies to go to different departments, kind of see a feel for that department. Right now it's not uncommon for, university students, Gen Zs, millennials to be like, I'm not sure what I really want to do. I feel like I would do good in this, but I also want to try, what it's like to work in this department. So we suggest that companies offer more opportunities of cross-training. Like one day you might go to finance department, or one day you might go to HR.
Right.
So, and then lastly, we suggested that companies offer succession planning. So what is your next steps? What is your next step in your career goals? Some people might not know, or some people might be like, I kind of want to do this, or I kind of want to do that. So we suggest that companies really taken seriously on like succession planning, have like an agenda, a timeline, and help their like employees and work together with them on this to, help them go up the ladder, or even help them just kind of expand themselves as a person, their characteristics, or what they want to do in the future.
I think that's a great idea. And one of the things you talked about with the cross training and everything is something that a lot of large companies that are very sophisticated with their talent programs do with mobility, where they do these rotations every 9 months or annually or whatever, which really exposes people to other parts of the business. So great idea. Nicola says, just imagine the head start we would have had if programs like this were available when we were in school. This is a great idea. I agree, Nicola, as well. Let's see. Richard says, massive kudos to the panel. My daughter, my daughter's same age, and she clicks to leave the Zoom call during lectures and blames bad Wi-Fi. Really, kudos for being so confident and composed. It's been interesting and heartening. Richard also does not believe his daughter would say anything nice about him if given the opportunity on Love and Relo. I'm sorry, Richard. I'm sure she would, but don't ask her because you might be disappointed. Rob, I've seen so many presentations and webinars on how do we appeal to employees of Generation ABC, and this is showing that we really should just ask them. These are great ideas. Vinny Valverde. Vinny runs the program at UPS. He runs the Global Mobility Program at UPS. He's a good friend of the show and personal friend. Super cute, cool to hear everything you are doing. Great job. You are all hired, he says.
Yay!
So, everybody that's watching this right now, you should all connect, and their names are right there. You should all connect with all of these young professionals on LinkedIn. Be friends with them. Get their names right here. Connect with all of them. I'm sure that they would be open connectors. Jana's saying she loves the challenge. So Jana's up to the challenge. This is great. Yes, I did put you on the spot, Jana. I'm sorry, but you're up for it. I know you are. Let's go around the horn real quick and just say one closing thought for everyone, if you would. I just want to give you all just an opportunity to kind of close this out here. And I will start with you, Sarah, if you don't mind.
I would just say I think that global mobility helps the world get to know each other, and I think that's so important. We need that connection. We need to understand that people around the world may look different from us or live different, speak differently, but we're all the same. And so I think it's great that there is a whole industry built up around that. So thanks for what you do.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Sarah. Jamie?
Yeah, definitely. Continue to have conversations like this. I think that's incredibly important in terms of increasing the visibility of global mobility as a whole. So continue to have these conversations, speaking, university classrooms, all of that.
Thank you, Jamie. And I hope to see you in the university classroom soon, Professor Zadorek. Amelia.
I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to come onto your show. It was definitely a pleasure to talk about our experience, and it was definitely nice to see the first place winners. I can definitely see why you guys got first place. It was definitely first place worthy. If by any chance, if we can meet up anytime, I'd love to see your guys' presentation. But I just want to say thank you for inviting us, and it was definitely a pleasure to talk to everyone here.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we should. I don't think you were inviting me, but I'd be happy to meet up too. I'm over here in Allen. I'm down. Aya?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity today. It was really cool to see people interacting in the comments from all over the world. And to go back to what Rob said, I think it's a really good idea to ask people how to appeal to different generations. That's really important. And like what Sarah said, I think global mobility is so important because you represent basically your country. You're like an ambassador to the other country. And so it's really cool to get to know other people.
Very cool. And thanks for being president of the GMC. Aya. Taylor?
First, Amelia, we will have to meet up. Our team was talking about how we wanted to share presentations and see everyone else's. But I think for me, coming from outside of global mobility, I think it's also important to understand global mobility, even if that's not the industry you see yourself going into, because it is something where most companies are multinational, and so you do still have to understand those different cultures.
That's a great point. Even if you're not going to work in global mobility, you might be a customer of global mobility and on assignment sometimes. So very cool. Exactly. Great point, Taylor. May, Madam Vice President.
Yes. So I first want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to talk on your show. It's a great place to raise a voice about the industry, and that way we can learn more about the industry as students too. And I hope our club, Global Mobility Club at UTD, will keep growing and we'll get more members who are interested and passionate about the industry, because it's an amazing industry to learn about. And we're looking for sponsor or like internship, because we're planning to have an internship expo next semester for interested member. And hopefully we'll get more engagement and involvement in UTD. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in the competition. I'm so sorry.
No, good. No, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to step on you. I did want to say, though, as far as the internship thing goes, though, I think that everybody watching will be really interested to either have an internship with folks in the program or to refer somebody they know. Vinny Valverde, again, who runs he's the director of global mobility for UPS. He says it does feel like more and more universities are interested in the global mobility function. This is an amazing opportunity for our industry. I know Vinny's speaking at the University of Houston soon. I know some of other folks in our industry have spoken at Harvard and Yale and others. So, Vinny's another one, by the way. Put him down on the list to ask Professor Zadorek about. Get Vinny in the classroom as well. And let's see. Richard's asking, are all the panel on LinkedIn? Are you all on LinkedIn? Yes.
Yeah, I think. Did you tag us on your post about today?
I tagged just about everybody. There's somebody I think I struggled to tag, but I tagged just about everybody on there. So
I think that was me.
Was it you?
Yes, but it's just Jamie Schmidt.
I think there was a few Jamie Schmidts, and I was having trouble, and I was like in a rush, and I think I was hungry or something. So
no worries.
But go ahead and comment on it, so now other people see your name. Rob saying, great show, one of the best. UTD comments have a new fan. All right. And then I'm going to end this with Valerie's comment because I think it's just spot on, and it's what I would say as well. You ladies are awesome. I didn't know the mobility world existed until my late 20s. I am so impressed with your knowledge. I wish I had this opportunity in college. I agree. You are all amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope to see you all in Richardson at UTD sometime if we can get an invitation, or maybe I'll just come uninvited. I don't really care. I'll just show up and audit the class or something like that. But shout out to Professor Zadorek. Shout out to Letitia. Shout out to Kerwin. Shout out to all of the mentors who were involved in the program. And of course, again, to all the winners and all the participants and all the members of the Global Mobility Club at the University of Texas at Dallas. Thank you all for being here, and good luck in your career. And if there's anything I can do for you personally, please just hit me up. Take care, everybody. Talk to you later.
Thank
See you all.
Thank you, everyone.